She was born to be a simple servant, but she never imagined that her destiny would change forever. Since she was little, Nia grew up in the royal castle of Ukanda, but was never treated as part of it. To the nobles, she was nothing more than a mere servant, an unimportant face amidst the grandeur of the palace. For the other servants, it was a nuisance, a burden that they should just obey and remain silent. She never met her parents and didn't even know their real surname. For as long as she could remember, her life had been limited to the cold walls of the kitchen, the rough floor of the stable, and the shadowy corridors of the castle, where she learned from an early age that she was not to be seen, much less heard. The only thing she owned was a small piece of aged cloth that always carried with her the only reminder of her origin, left with her when she was still an abandoned baby. The other servants had no mercy. They made her wake up before sunrise to carry heavy buckets of water, scrub the stone floors until her hands bled, and endure the insults of maids and governesses. To the nobles, she was nobody. To the servants, she was just a burden. However, even in the midst of that suffering, there was something that no one could take away from that girl: her dreams. When she could get a few seconds of rest, Nia took refuge in the huge window of the servants' tower, from where she could see the castle gardens, and in the background, beyond the golden gates, the world she could never know. She imagined what it would be like to run freely through the fields, to feel the wind on her face without fear of being called insolent. Sometimes she dreamed of her mother coming back for her, but those thoughts were soon crushed by harsh reality. The fate seemed to be sealed. She would always be a slave. Her only refuge was Marta, the castle's old cook, the only person who showed any affection for her. Marta had worked at the castle for decades and, unlike the others, saw something special in the girl. She always said, "Fate can change in the blink of an eye. Suffering never lasts forever." But Nia couldn't believe it. How could fate change for someone like her? If there was anyone in the castle who hated Nia's existence more than anyone else, it was Queen Zelika. The monarch was a cold and cruel woman who ruled with an iron fist and never accepted anything beyond her control. For her, Nia was a mistake that shouldn't exist, an unwanted piece inside the royal castle. But the girl belonged to the castle. Her husband found her on the street and brought her to be a slave. But Nia had no idea that her life would change so much. And if you don't want to miss any detail of this story, click now on the subscribe button below and leave a like. Zelika could not tolerate a simple servant walking through the corridors close to the nobles, especially when she noticed something strange. The young woman was approaching Prince Jamal. The young man was the heir to the throne of the powerful kingdom of Ukanda. From an early age, he was trained to be a strong and ruthless leader, someone who would continue the legacy of his father, King Omari. His destiny seemed to be sealed. One day, he would rule with wisdom, discipline, and obedience to traditions. But contrary to what was expected of a prince, Jamal never felt completely comfortable with the life he led. While everyone around him believed that royalty was superior, he observed the injustices within the castle and beyond the walls. He saw the servants being treated as objects, the nobles living in luxury while the people were starving, and the rigidity imposed by his mother, Queen Zelika, who did not tolerate any breach of royal protocol. It was then that he noticed Nia for the first time. The young man was returning from a trip he took to study. He never spent his entire adolescence abroad, so he had no contact with her. A simple slave, with no family name, no known past, no importance to the court. However, there was something that intrigued him. It wasn't just the way he worked without complaining, or the way he tolerated humiliation from others. It was her look, a look that, despite the forced submission, still carried hope, a hope that he himself had already lost. Jamal saw her for the first time when he was passing through the castle gardens. Nia was kneeling on the ground, trying to save an injured bird. While the other servants laughed at her, saying she was useless, she ignored their taunts and tried to help him. The prince stood still for a few moments, observing the scene. Everyone in that castle was cold, indifferent, and greedy. But here was someone who, even in his miserable position, still cared about life. From that moment on, the young man began to notice her everywhere. He saw how he worked tirelessly, how he looked beyond the golden gates, as if he longed for a world he could never have. He started looking for her without even realizing it. During At banquets, he would look towards the direction where the young woman served the food. Once he caught her singing softly while cleaning the floor and accidentally smiled when he heard her. That's when Queen Zalika noticed. She never let anything escape her control. Jamal hadn't said a single word to Nia until that moment, but his mother noticed the looks, the small gestures, the way his eyes searched the slave without him noticing. At first, Zalika thought it was just a passing curiosity, but then she saw something that made her blood run cold. The matriarch caught Jamal smiling at Nia. It was an almost imperceptible instant, but for Zalika, that was enough. His son, the crown prince, should never allow himself to have any kind of contact with a servant. That was absurd. What no one knew was that the queen had faced this situation before. Many years ago, before becoming queen, Omari, then a prince, fell in love with a woman who was not of noble blood. This forbidden love almost destroyed the kingdom. It took a great sacrifice for the scandal to be erased from history, and now, decades later, Zalika saw the same danger repeating itself before her eyes. Wouldn't allow it. He tried to subtly push them away. He ordered Nia to be moved to the stables, away from the main areas of the castle. He ordered the servants to overload her with work, so that she would not have the time or strength to cross the prince's path. One night, while the queen was in her chambers, thinking and analyzing Nia's case, she had a great idea. This girl won't be under my roof for long, and if it's up to me, she won't live long enough to become a problem. Do you think destiny can change, or is everything written? Comment here below. The days passed, and Prince Jamal could no longer ignore what he felt. He tried to convince himself that it was just curiosity, a passing desire to understand this young slave who seemed so different from the other servants in the palace. But no matter how much he tried to push these thoughts away, they came back with even more force. The prince began to feel restless. There was something wrong, but before he could deepen his search, he was called to fulfill a royal obligation. King Omari sent him on a diplomatic trip to a neighboring kingdom, a mission that would require a few days away from the palace. With no choice, Jamal left. Upon returning to the palace after days away, Jamal noticed something strange. Her presence was not there. He tried hard not to show concern, but he felt a growing uneasiness. Discreetly, I couldn't ask anyone about Nia. During the day, he tried to continue with his duties, but the thought that something had happened to her tormented him. Later in the night, heavy rain began to fall, accompanied by distant thunder. The prince was returning from a brief inspection of the royal warriors' training grounds, and upon arriving at the castle, decided to take his own horse to the stable to shelter him from the storm. The smell of wet earth mixed with the hay and the sound of rain hitting the thatched roof created a mesmerizing sound. But as soon as he entered the stable, something caught his attention. Huddled in a corner, shivering from the cold and completely soaked, was Nia. The prince froze for a moment. His heart raced. She was kneeling on the dirt floor, desperately trying to help a small injured antelope which was struggling and unable to get up. His scream echoed through the stable, louder than he intended. The young girl raised her head in shock, her eyes wide with surprise. When she recognized the prince before her, she felt her entire body shudder. His first instinct was to lower his head and look away. "My lord," his voice was weak, almost a whisper. "Do you want something?" "I just wanted to help this animal, but I'm already going back to my duties." Jamal approached slowly. The dim torchlight illuminated his serious face, and Nia felt her heart race. She was wet, muddy, and shivering, but the prince didn't even seem to notice. He just looked at her in a way that made her even more nervous. Unlike the other nobles in the castle, he did not reprimand her. He didn't even call her slave dismissively. On the contrary, his look was worried. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice softer than Nia expected. That question took her completely by surprise. She hesitated. Never had a member of royalty asked him that question. Her mind told her to lower her eyes and respond submissively, but something in Jamal's tone made her want to face him. "I'm fine, my lord," she lied. The prince didn't seem convinced. His dark eyes fell on the small injured animal between them. "Why are you here at this time?" he questioned, kneeling beside her, something no other noble would ever do. "Why aren't you in the servants' dormitory?" Nia felt the blood drain from her face. She couldn't tell the truth. She couldn't say that there was no longer a dormitory for her, because Queen Zalika had ordered her to be expelled from the castle. And much less could I say that since then she had been sleeping hidden in the stables, finding shelter wherever she could. "My lord, I heard a noise and came to see what it was," he murmured, lowering his head. This cub fell and was struggling to get up. I couldn't just leave him here alone in the storm. Jamal watched Nia for a few seconds. Jamal was surprised that even with everything against her, Nia still cared about something other than herself. In all his life, the prince had never met anyone like this. The slave felt her face burn. Jamal was still there, watching her in a way that made her feel small. Why does the prince care about me? The question escaped his lips before he could control himself. Jamal blinked, surprised by the direct question. But before he could respond, thunder cut across the sky and the storm intensified outside. The sound echoed through the stable, and the little antelope struggled even more. Nia quickly placed her hands on him, trying to calm him down. Jamal looked away from the animal and looked back at her. Something was very wrong. Why wasn't she there? And most of all, why did the sight of her in that state bother him so much? There are still many surprises to happen until the end of this story, so leave a like on the video so you don't miss anything. Seeing that Nia was struggling to hold the small antelope, he knelt down beside her and without saying anything, wrapped his strong arms around the animal to help it balance. The young woman was paralyzed for a moment. No nobleman had ever stooped to the level of a servant, much less to help a wounded animal. But Jamal didn't seem to care about that. Gently, he lifted the cub and placed it on a pile of dry hay. The animal was still weak, but it stopped struggling, breathing more calmly. Nia caressed him gently, whispering reassuring words, while Jamal watched her. "You always worry about those who can't defend themselves, don't you?" the prince murmured without looking away. Nia felt her heart race. Why was he looking at her like that? Why did he care? She quickly lowered her head and moved away a little, trying to hide the tremor in her hands. "The prince shouldn't be here," he said quietly. "If anyone sees you helping a slave, they may be misunderstood." Jamal didn't respond immediately. He knew she was right. What was he doing there? Kneeling beside a servant, helping her save an animal that, to anyone else in the palace, had no value. But he couldn't just turn his back and ignore her. "It's late," he said, standing up and extending his hand to help her do the same. "You need to go back to the servants' dormitory. You can't spend the night here in the cold." Nia hesitated. If she accepted his hand, she would be breaking all the rules imposed by the castle. No slave should get so close to a nobleman, much less touch him. But Jamal didn't seem to care about that. Still, she shook her head. "I am fine, my lord. The prince must return to his chambers. I will soon follow as well." Jamal crossed his arms and raised an eyebrow. "Then let's go together." Nia's heart froze. If he walked her to the dorms and saw that she didn't have a place to sleep, he would know something was wrong. Her lie would be discovered, and the queen's wrath would fall upon her in full force. "No need, my lord," he insisted, trying to smile. "I just need to organize a few things first." Jamal didn't look convinced. He stayed there for a few seconds, watching her closely. Then he finally sighed. "Okay," he said, "but don't stay here too long." Nia bowed respectfully, pretending to agree. Only when the prince turned and disappeared into the darkness of the storm did she release the air trapped in her lungs. She waited a few minutes to make sure he was indeed gone, and then returned to the stable. There was nowhere to go. The servants' dormitory was no longer an option, since Queen Zalika had ordered their expulsion. If anyone saw her wandering around the castle, they could be severely punished. And so another night passed, with Nia sleeping among the hay, hugging the little antelope to keep warm. The next morning, as the sun began to illuminate the castle's stone corridors, Nia rose early to avoid being discovered. He ran to the kitchen, where he began to organize the utensils and prepare the ingredients for the noble's breakfast. But as soon as he turned around, he stopped abruptly. Jamal was there. He casually leaned against the kitchen door, arms crossed over his chest, watching her with a curious expression. "So, did you sleep well?" Nia felt her entire body contract. Did he know? Had he discovered it? "Yes, my lord," he replied quickly, trying to hide his nervousness. "I rested well, thank you." Jamal didn't respond right away. He just tilted his head slightly, as if trying to decipher the truth behind his words. But while the two exchanged that silent look, without them realizing it, there was another person watching them. Hidden in the shadows of the corridor, Queen Zalika saw everything, with her eyes sparkling with fury. His lips pressed together into a thin line, and his fists clenched at his sides. This has gone too far. The queen's patience had run out. If Nia believed that she could remain in the castle after attracting her son's attention, she was completely mistaken. And this time Zalika would ensure that the slave would never cross the prince's path again. If you think the queen is going to do something cruel to Nia, comment, "Watch out, Nia." The sun had not yet fully risen when the silence of the castle was broken by the sound of horses' hooves and the wheels of a heavy carriage passing through the gates. The visitor who arrived at the palace was neither a nobleman nor a diplomat. He was a brutish man, with a stern appearance and eyes as cold as steel. Tahar, one of the largest farmers in the region, known not only for his wealth, but also for his cruelty. The servants lowered their heads as they saw him pass by. His presence caused chills, and his reputation as an executioner was feared even by the bravest. Many had heard stories about his slaves, how he treated them worse than animals, demanding work to the bone and severely punishing any disobedience. But no one dared to challenge him, as his influence spread throughout the kingdom. He was received directly by Queen Zalika, who was waiting for him with an impassive look. For her, Tahar was not a monster, but the solution to her problem. "Queen Zalika," Tahar greeted her with a minimal bow without hiding his impatience. "I hope you have something valuable for me, as my trip was long." The queen smiled, satisfied. "I have exactly what you need, my dear Tahar. A young and strong servant. You won't find someone as resilient as her." Tahar raised an eyebrow, interested. "And why get rid of a slave like that? What's wrong with her?" Zalika folded her hands, choosing her words carefully. "She caused unnecessary distractions. It's more useful to someone like you than it is to me." The farmer smiled sideways. "I didn't need any more explanations. I had dealt with similar situations before. Young servants who attracted too much attention and were discarded so that they did not pose a danger. Nia was forcibly called away by the guards, and when she arrived at the castle's great hall and saw Tahar standing next to the queen, an icy cold ran down her spine. Something was wrong. The man's gaze on her was unlike any she had ever felt. It was as if I wasn't seeing a person, but rather a commodity, an object to be used and discarded. "What is happening?" she asked in a wavering voice, looking around. One of the guards responded brutally, "Kneel before your new master." The shock hit Nia like a knife. New master? Her eyes went straight to the queen, who was watching her with a triumphant smile. "You no longer belong in this castle," Zalika said coldly. "I made a deal. You will now serve Lord Tahar. He paid a good price for you." Nia felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. No, this couldn't be happening. His heart raced, his entire body shook. She wanted to scream, she wanted to run, she wanted to beg for this to be a nightmare. No! The word escaped his lips before he could stop himself. "Please, my lady, I beg you, don't send me with him. I serve well here." Silence. Zalika cut through his plea like a blade. "You have no choice, slave. It's my property, and I decide. It's fate." The words were like a death sentence. Nia looked around desperately as if looking for a way out, but there was nowhere to run. The guards were around him, the carriage was already waiting outside. Tahar approached with a cold smile. "Come on, girl, I don't have time for drama." He grabbed Nia's arm roughly, and she flinched as she felt the strength of his grip. Tears stung her eyes, but she knew crying wouldn't change anything. The queen wanted her away, and now there was no escape. She was pulled out of the castle and thrown into the carriage without any ceremony. The doors were locked and the horses began to move, taking her away from the only place she knew. Inside the castle, Zalika sighed in relief. Finally, Nia was out of his life. But what the queen didn't know was that fate was about to play a trick on her. At the same moment that the carriage left the city gates, Prince Jamal returned to the castle. He got off the horse, exhausted from the long journey, but something was wrong. The atmosphere inside the castle seemed strange. The servants avoided meeting their gaze as if they were hiding something. Jamal frowned. "What is happening?" Nobody responded. But then one of the servants, unable to bear the weight of the secret, murmured hesitantly, "The slave, Nia, she is gone." The prince's heart stopped. His eyes widened, and an ice ran through his body. "What do you mean by gone? Where is she?" It was then that the queen appeared, her gaze calm as if nothing had happened. "My son," she said, her sweet and manipulative voice. "Why that desperate tone? How was your trip?" But Jamal already knew. He felt it. His mother had done something. "Answer me. Where is she?" The queen raised her chin. "Who are you looking for like that?" "The slave was sold." The word echoed inside the prince's mind like thunder. Sold. Like an object. as if your life had no value. Why such concern, Jamal? Zalika looked at him, narrowing her eyes. Did she mean something to you? But Jamal didn't listen. I couldn't hear. His body moved on instinct. Without thinking twice, he turned and ran towards the stables. In a few seconds, he saddled his horse and mounted without even worrying about putting on armor or getting ready. He couldn't waste time. Jamal, come back here now, I order. But he was already riding away out of the castle gates like lightning. Tahar's carriage should be far away, but he didn't care. Would find her. No matter the price, no matter the consequences, he would rescue Nia. Are you rooting for Jamal to be able to save Nia? Do the two of them have a chance? Little did Jamal know what awaited him. Jamal rode as if his very life depended on it. The wind cut into his face, the dust rose along the path, and his heart pounded in his chest. He couldn't fail. Every minute wasted was another minute that Nia spent in Tahar's hands. He would not allow her to suffer a cruel fate. The image of her being taken against her will never left his mind. Fury and despair consumed him. Meanwhile, in the castle, Queen Zalika paced back and forth, her expression filled with fury. His son, his own son, had defied his authority and gone after that slave. It was as if fate was mocking her, making her relive the ghosts of the past. There was no way Jamal was willing to throw everything away for a servant. This couldn't happen again. She clenched her fists. Her eyes glowed with anger. Something would have to be done to stop this before it was too late. Jamal had already covered miles when he finally saw traces of Tahar's caravan. He urged his horse to go even faster, feeling the adrenaline rush through his veins. It didn't take long to reach a group of mounted men, warriors of Tahar, who were protecting the carriage carrying Nia. They looked at each other, surprised to see a lone prince riding towards them with such determination. "Where is Tahar?" Jamal shouted, his voice full of authority. The men hesitated, for no one dared confront a prince directly. But before they could respond, Tahar himself appeared, mounted on his imposing horse. His face was marked by a mocking smile, as if he already knew the reason for that visit. Well, look who decided to show up," said Tahar, pulling the reins of his horse to face Jamal head-on. The crown prince riding alone through the desert for the sake of a slave. I never imagined I would see something like this. Inside the carriage, Nia heard Jamal's voice, and her heart almost stopped. She moved quickly, trying to see through the gaps in the wagon, and when her eyes finally found him, she felt her legs go weak. No, that couldn't be real. Was he really there? Had the prince really come for her? Tears pooled in his eyes, and his chest tightened in a mixture of relief and despair. Jamal got off the horse firmly, his eyes fixed on Tahar. "I'm here to take the slave back with me." Tahar laughed, shaking his head. "You must be joking, Prince. I already made a deal with your mother. Deal closed. Zalika's word is final, and I don't usually go back on my dealings." Jamal didn't look away. His entire body was tense, but his voice remained steady. "I'll pay 3 times more than what you gave for it." The proposal made Tahar's eyes light up for an instant. Money always spoke louder, and 3 times as much was a considerable amount. He looked at his men, then at the carriage where Nia was trapped, pondering. Nia was in shock. His racing heart made his breathing become irregular. Was he really trying to buy her back? Was he willing to pay that much to rescue her? Tahar finally let out a long sigh and shrugged. "Very well, Prince. It seems that this slave is worth much more than I imagined. It's done. She is yours." With a wave of his hand, one of the men opened the carriage door, and Nia was pushed out. She staggered onto the dry land, still stunned by everything that was happening. His eyes met Jamal's, and at that moment, everything around him disappeared. She felt hot tears run down her face as her legs weakened. Without thinking, she fell to her knees in front of him, holding his clothes tightly. "My lord!" His voice was choked. "I don't know how to thank you," Nia sobbed, emotion overflowing her chest, the weight of fear, anguish, and pain finally crashing down on her. She never thought someone would fight for her like that, but Jamal didn't allow her to kneel. He held her arms firmly and lifted her up, making their eyes meet. "Nia," he said, his voice filled with something she had never heard before. "I won't let you go, not before saying what I really feel." The young woman's heart stopped for a moment. Her frightened gaze met his, trying to understand those words. What do you mean?" Jamal took a deep breath without taking his eyes off her. The prince held Nia's hands and began to declare his love and admiration for her. "What if someone defied everything and everyone to be with you? can you imagine? Comment love always wins. If you believe that true love is worth any sacrifice. Nia felt the world spin around her. His legs were weak. His heart was beating so fast he was afraid it might jump out of his chest. The prince's words still echoed in his mind like distant thunder. Did he love her? Had he defied his own mother, ridden tirelessly, paid a fortune to rescue her, all because he loved her? But that was impossible. The love between a prince and a slave made no sense, not in the world they lived in. She lowered her head, not knowing how to respond. She felt Jamal's eyes on her, waiting for any reaction, but her mind was a storm of doubts. Jamal sighed and softened his tone. If you don't want to, I won't insist. I will set you free right now. You will be the master of your own destiny and you will be able to go wherever you want. She looked up, startled. Was this real? Were you saying you would give her up if that was what you wanted? After everything she'd done, after facing them all, would he just let her go? She remained silent, fighting the confusion that gripped her heart. A part of her said that they should leave, that they would never be accepted, that the world would not allow this love. But another part pulsed so hard inside him that it almost hurt. She took a deep breath and found the strength to speak. This is crazy, my prince. We have no chance. Jamal stood firm before her. His gaze was intense, filled with unshakable certainty. He held her hands gently and said something that made her catch her breath. Nia, I don't care about kingdoms, titles, or traditions. None of this means anything if I can't have you by my side. It was at that moment that everything inside her collapsed. There was no longer any doubt. There was no more fear. She threw herself into his arms, feeling the heat of his body and the racing pulse of his heart against hers. He closed his eyes and allowed himself to feel that for the first time in his life. The warmth of protection, the feeling of being truly loved, of belonging to a place, of being wanted for who she really was. Tears fell from her eyes, not from sadness, but from deep relief. For so long, he believed that his life would never have value, that it would always be an object to be sold and discarded. But there in Jamal's arms, he realized it was more than that. They stood holding each other under the open sky, not saying a word, just feeling each other. But deep down, they both knew that this was just the beginning. They still had a long way to go. They had no idea of the challenges they were about to face. Do you think this love will survive everything that is to come? Could it be that the Queen had really let all this happen under her nose? The two continued their journey under the cover of night, leaving behind the past and the invisible chains that bound them. Jamal held the horse's reins tightly, his gaze fixed on the unfamiliar road ahead. Nia, riding behind him, felt the cold wind against her face, but the warmth of the prince's body gave her comfort. It was the first time in her life that she felt truly free. Jamal knew his decision would have dire consequences. His father, the king, might try to understand, but his mother, Zalika, would never accept it. For her, this was more than a scandal, a betrayal. A prince didn't run away. He didn't abandon his kingdom for love, but he didn't care. He wasn't willing to spend the rest of his life living according to his mother's wishes. Jamal wanted to choose his own destiny, and that destiny was with Nia. With every kilometer they rode, anxiety and fear began to give way to hope. For once, they weren't a prince and a slave. They were just two souls who found each other and decided to be together. For days they moved forward, passing through unknown lands, sleeping under the stars, experiencing an intense and forbidden love. Nia still had trouble believing that all of this was real. Every morning, when she woke up and saw Jamal beside her, smiling at her as if nothing else in the world mattered, she felt her heart race. She never knew what it was like to be looked at like that, like she was the only person who mattered. Jamal made a point of taking care of her in every detail. He hunted, fetched water, protected her at night. Even though he was a prince accustomed to the luxury of the castle, he now didn't care about the difficulties on the road. All he wanted was to be with his loved one. One night, on the edge of a crystal-clear river, Jamal sat next to her and held her hand tenderly. "Are you happy?" he asked, his gaze fixed. He felt a knot in his throat. "I never imagined I could be," she replied softly. Jamal smiled and caressed her face. "Then promise us we'll never look back," she nodded. But fate is not always so generous. In the castle, Queen Zalika was furious. His face carried uncontrollable fury. "How did your son have the audacity to challenge your authority like that? Run away with a slave, abandon your kingdom, bring shame to your lineage? That was unacceptable." She gathered her generals. her voice cold and cutting like sharp blades. "I want Jamal back, and I want that woman out of my way forever." The kingdom's soldiers left that same night, hundreds of armed men, trained to track down fugitives. There would be no escape. Meanwhile, Jamal and Nia continued living their new life, unaware that the biggest threat was approaching. And now, will they find them? What do you think? Comment for the next chapter. It will take your breath away.